Welcome back to the John Fredericks Show, our esteemed panel here in Glen Allen, Virginia. And we want to thank our host, the Association of Electric Cooperatives, and our panel here today discussing politics. Great panel, by the way. We're still kind of, if you can come up with a name, tweet it out at JF Radio Show. What should we call this panel? Some people said the deplorables. Julian doesn't like that.
Andrew's Army.
Andrew's Army. Okay, that's one. Anyway, we've got Andrew Vehorn. He's the legislative director of the Association of Electric Co-ops, a former House of Delegates member 2002 to 2010. Chris Saxman, the head of Virginia Free. We have Julian Walker, Dean Emeritus of the Capitol Press Corps, and my good friend, and Aaron Gobranson, who's the author of a book called Smoke-Filled Rooms. You can get that on Amazon. I'm going to get a signed copy of it. Blogger and GOP guru. So that's our panel. Of course, we're going to be talking a little politics here. And let's start with the 2018 U.S. Senate race. A lot of people thought it was going to be a 2017 Senate race like Rob Whitman. That's not going to happen. 2018, Tim Kaine will be up for re-election. And we've already got a number of candidates in this thing. Let me just read them off. This is who I think, based on my intel, is going to run. Former Congressman, Northern Virginia, Tom Davis. Former Governor Jim Gilmore was also the head of Virginia Victory, whatever that was. Jim did a good job. I'm not even sure what that organization was, but Gilmore, great guy. The neocon, I never met a missile warmonger, Carly Fiorina. By the way, has she ever paid her people from the California Senate race, all those little vendors that she stiffed? Probably not. House of Delegates member Jimmy Massey, and the gorilla in the race, Pete Snyder. All, I believe, will run in 2018. So what do you guys think? Let's start with Chris Saxman.
Well, the fact that they were given so much lead time heading into the 18 cycle, the possibility, strong possibility that Clinton Kaine were going to win, gives them an advantage now going into the 18 cycle, regardless of who wins. They have an organizational advantage. Tom Davis will have a fundraising advantage. He can probably write a check to fund his own campaign. So can Carly Fiorina, Jim Gilmore, name ID, less so than obviously what used to be. Jimmy Massey could have a very strong run there, pro-business, business guy, and Pete Snyder the same way. So it's a toss-up at this point. I think some of these will drop out in time. They'll go, it's just not there, or it's just not for me. Rob Whitman might get in if he doesn't run for governor. I think if Rob Whitman gets in, Tom Davis gets out.
Yeah, but Whitman would have to give up his seat. He's not going to do that. Because if he stayed, he'd have to give up his seat.
Not to run. He'd have to give up his seat if he won the nomination.
Yeah.
I don't see Whitman. If he doesn't run for governor and he takes the subcommittee chairmanship on Sea Power, he's not going to now get in the race with five people to run for Senate.
Then Tom Davis is in, and he makes a credible case that the Commonwealth of Virginia is like the old Tom Davis district.
And he could win, right?
If he can make the case and can get that voter to the polls in the general.
Right.
Three things with Tom. Number one, he's done nothing but crap on the Republican Party for the last 8 years. So I think he has a hard time selling to the Republican primary universe or convention, because remember, it's not a set method of nomination yet. Number two, I think that Carly Fiorina has a hard case to make, given that she ran as a liberal California Republican when she ran in 2010 in California, and as you mentioned, she stiffed out a few vendors. And now she's moving to Virginia to run for U.S. Senate. I don't think the voters will find that palatable. Number three, Jim Gilmore was the last Republican governor, and last governor period, to cut taxes and really truly unite the party for a length of time. What Jim achieved when he was governor was not only cutting the car tax, but the permanent legislative majority we have in the House of Delegates. That was his doing, working along with Vance Wilkins at the time, and that's something I think the Republican activists will remember.
Well, I think one of the strengths for a Gilmore campaign, again, not advocating for any of these, just pointing out some of the I think factors in the race. Jim Gilmore can get up there and say, "You can count on me. What I tell you is what I'm going to do because I did it. You might not like what I did, It might not have worked out too well for X, Y, and Z reasons, but what I told you I was going to do, I did. And in the United States Senate race in a primary, that can be a game changer.
He's going to be a very compelling, convincing candidate, and I wouldn't count him out. I'm with you on that one, Chris. Now, I had the pleasure, obviously, of working with him during this past campaign. He worked hard, but I also spent a week with him in Manchester, New Hampshire, and I always tell this story. Both of us stayed. We were on a budget, his campaign and my company, and we both stayed at the Super 8 Motel in Manchester, which was a flea bag extraordinaire, and I got to shuttle over to where I was doing my show. Every day they picked me up at 4:50 a.m. and for 5 days, because I was there for a week running up to that. For 5 days, Jim Gilmore met me down there for a cup of coffee at 4:30, and he was going out to shake hands with some factory. So the guy, the guy will work. So I think he's going to be.
Jim Gilmore will work.
The problem is you've got to get people to vote for you, even if you work. And
that's true.
Jim ran for president in his home state and in his home county and his home precinct. He didn't win.
He got beat. Yeah.
I thought he had dropped out at that point in time.
No, he was still in.
No, he was on the ballot in Virginia, but he had withdrawn from the race by the
That's
time.
right.
In those last debates, he had a strong performance.
Well, I thought he was on the undercard, and
He was
I
on the
thought
undercard, but he still had a strong
I was
performance.
there at the 3 debates where he was on the undercard. I thought he won all of them hands down
because he had a message.
He had a message.
He has a message and a resume. I mean, this was a guy who was governor on September the 11th. He chaired the counterterrorism task force. He has counterintelligence experience as a veteran. He did great things in Virginia. He didn't fight back when his legacy was under attack after he left office. He unfortunately took the John Kerry way of not responding to the attacks. He let Mark Warner define his legacy after Warner came into office. And so he's been marred by that, and I don't know that he can overcome that.
Well, the one thing especially in the Republican primary universe, so one of the things he would talk about is you know his record, like Chris was saying, but you also know that the people who did him the most damage were the liberal Republicans, the Gang of Five. The other thing I think we need to think about with the U.S. Senate race and in the statewide races next year is who's palatable to the president. I mean, Trump. Who supported Trump? How much does that care? Do the primary universe care? How much do the voters of Virginia care? And let's face it, I mean, out of anybody who's talking about running, the only one I can think of that was enthusiastically supporting Donald Trump all the way to the end was Jim Gilmore. Carly Fiorina said, Trump, get out of the race. You need to resign.
But to that point, though, I mean, and we've discussed this throughout this segment, is that coalition a replicable one, particularly the coalition that the president-elect put together, is that a replicable one, particularly 2 years after his victory this year?
I don't think so.
I think
I think
Davis's
Davis's advantage here is somebody's going to be looking for a winner, and he's going to make the case that he can win.
Davis's advantage is going to be Northern Virginia. He's
Yeah,
got to
and he
pull
got
out
on the
all of his votes up there.
He got on the Trump bandwagon late. Jean Marie Davis, who ran for lieutenant governor, who I think is a very nice lady, by the way. She was on the leadership team, and she actually defended Trump on my radio show very, very artfully after the ridiculous Access Hollywood thing. But let's get to Carly Fiorina for a minute. To me, this is like the Dr. Strangelove of this race. I mean, she's running around the country. First she's running for Senate. She doesn't pay her vendors. She runs Hewlett-Packard into the ground. The stock tanks. She makes terrible decisions. She spends millions of dollars on her own image. She ships jobs out, good American-paying jobs, to Bangladesh. Then she cruises VP for a day. Then she tells Trump to get out of the race. She never met a bomb, missile, or war she didn't like, and now she's planted herself in Virginia running for Senate. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. This is the stuff that I hate about politics. This is stuff that makes my blood boil. I mean, the first thing she needs to do is pay her vendors that she stiffed in the U.S. Senate race,
and she
outsourced jobs.
And she's a Mets fan.
And she's a Mets fan.
I don't claim that one.
Ask Randy Forbes how Virginians feel about carpetbaggers.
Well,
yeah, New York. They
good one.
elect them in New York, not in Virginia.
And she's a carpetbagger.
Well, let's.
I don't like her.
And she supported the Dream Act too, by the way.
Let's back this thing up.
I mean, she's an open borders.
You made a great point.
Open borders, ship out jobs, egomaniacal candidate. That is, it's what everybody cannot stand about politics.
But Ted Cruz might come in and say, she was with me, I am with her. Because Ted Cruz might not be done. Let's be honest. If Ted Cruz comes in and he's with the conservative wing of the Republican Party, anti-establishment, and he says Carly Fiorina is my girl. Do those people show up in a primary in a five-way and make that big of a difference to get to the nomination?
Well, they're not going to vote for Tom Davis.
I'm just saying, if you take the universe of Republican primary voters, who can make a sale to that constituency that to your point, might not be made by Carly Fiorina herself?
Jimmy Massey or Jim
Cruz.
Gilmore. I mean, I think it comes down to those two. Pete Snyder needs to figure out what he wants to be when he grows up in Republican politics. Fiorina, I don't see getting traction. Tom Davis is stuck in Northern Virginia. That leaves Jimmy Massey, who runs as a businessman and has the House of Delegates
Massey's a dark
infrastructure.
horse.
He is.
Massey's a dark horse, guys. I mean, I think you're.
He is. I mean,
Hey,
Family
well,
Foundation.
Do we though? I mean, if we're giving Tom Davis, who clearly has a longer track record in the public sphere than Pete does, someone I'm a fan of, and Johnson, I know someone you're a fan of.
Yeah, I like that.
But are we discounting Pete's anchor in Northern Virginia while also giving Tom Davis credit for having that power base in Northern Virginia?
Yes.
But look, we're a year and a half out of that nomination. Anyone who has the money and the organization and the talent you've been pointing out, who can hire the people to get the job done and has the message at the time that the electorate is on a particular vein, that's going to be the person who wins. I mean, this is so speculative at this point, but you have to have an organization, you have to have a message, and you have to have money.
Okay, so
John, you need to talk Nancy Dye into getting into the race.
we're in agreement that yeah, right. We're in agreement. Yeah, that actually is a bad
else.
idea. We're in fact, let's put her name down. We're in agreement that Massey's going to be a player,
Yes.
and I happen to agree with that. I think he'll have a message. And let's get to Pete Snyder. Chap Peterson says Pete Snyder is the most dangerous Republican in Virginia. I agree with that because he can win, but he's got to run. And I think Pete's risk here is this: he was going to run for governor, he did not. He backed dead. That's fine. Now he's speculative for U.S. Senate. I think he's got to run in 18, or he becomes like everybody's. What's the word? Bridesmaid, never the bride, or something.
He becomes like Burt Musazawa in the governor's race.
Burt Musazawa, always going to run, never runs.
But Burt may be in line for a position in the Trump administration.
That's true.
Number one.
Actually.
Number two, I don't know that I agree with that about Pete. I think Pete has at this point run for office one time. Came in a close second in the convention and was, by all accounts, a very loyal and ardent backer of the nominee, E.W. Jackson, at
Yes.
the time. So I don't know that Pete is branded with the label of, indecisive or vacillating or whatever. I think Pete is, what is Pete, like 43,
He's a
44?
he's a very, very young guy.
Pete's got some time. I think Pete can, if we're having the same conversation 6-8 years from now, I think this is valid. If he decides not to get in, and I have no inside knowledge about whether or not what his thinking is on 2018, if he decides to take a pass on 2018, I don't think that forecloses future statewide opportunities for him.
Also, if Ed Gillespie is the winner, does he come out and let's say he becomes governor, hypothetical.
He backs Pete.
He backs Pete because Pete backed
He backs
him.
Pete.
Right. Okay. That's a dynamic heading into a primary where if you have a governor and his infrastructure in place to support Pete, that could be a real bonus for Pete in a primary or even a convention.
Okay, let's go around the table because we got to get to two more topics. But before we get,
Does anybody think Cooch gets in the race?
No, Chris?
I don't.
I think it remains to be seen. I don't think that this is the same thing I said about Pete. I don't think that Cuccinelli, we've seen his last act in politics yet, in Virginia politics yet.
Aaron?
I think other than maybe being a political hack, and I say that somewhat affectionately, I think Ken Cuccinelli's aspirations for office are confined to the dust heap of history in terms of any reality of them occurring.
But that,
So, no.
is that separate from whether or not he enters the race? I mean, he
won't run for U.S. Senate because my understanding is he's making too much money doing what he's doing right now, and his debt's too high so he needs to continue to make too much money. And as everybody knows, if you're running for office, you're not making money.
He's got a basketball team to feed.
Yeah, that's true.
I wouldn't vote for Ken Cuccinelli for dog catcher for the rest of my life, based on the experience I had with him at the Harrisonburg Convention, which was one of the most distasteful days of my life in politics, and fighting him for 9 consecutive days at the Republican National Convention in Cleveland. I'm done. I'm just done with that.
I'll pile on for a second. Ken Cuccinelli has done more to damage the Republican Party in Virginia
I agree
from
with
the
that.
inside than anybody I can think of.
Let's segue to the Republican Party of Virginia. They got an advance coming up. They've lost 7 consecutive statewide races. Chris, they lost. You just pointed out they lost Northern Virginia by 318,000 votes. What is going on with the Republican Party of Virginia? Let's start with
There needs to be some
Andrew
serious
Behorn.
soul searching. When the Republican Party had its big victories, we were able to build up margins in places like Henrico, Chesterfield, Chesapeake, Virginia Beach to offset the losses we were going to take in Northern Virginia. We've stopped winning races in Henrico County. We've stopped winning countywide offices. The Chesterfield margins, the Chesapeake margins are 52-48. That's not enough to offset what we're doing. We're losing all of our safe havens. We have nowhere to go to make those up. We're having to rely on places where people don't live, the 5th District, the 9th District. 5 precincts in Fairfax County can offset 5 counties in the 9th District. And I don't see where we are building bridges to those communities. So this shouldn't be a high five, we won the presidency. This needs to be a serious gut check for RPV about how do we capitalize on what just happened and bring it home to Virginia.
Is there even an RPV? I mean,
No.
Is there an
most,
infrastructure?
Both political parties have been cast aside to Citizens United. You have so much money that can come in and dominate a nomination or a campaign. So when you have all these different people running, the Democrats don't have this problem of a lot of candidates running. They realized after 2009, look, just get one guy. Put one person up on the ballot, one candidate. After 2004, after the Kerry loss, they said we're going to get organized and we're going to get unified. And that's it. And they haven't had these mass 17 people running for president. They've picked one candidate and said, that's our person. We're going to support them. We're going to get everyone out and support them. So they've been far more unified as selecting candidates. That's one of the reasons why they went to the statewide level. So I can't push that off on RPV.
And to Chris's point, and I think it's very salient, setting aside the efficacy of state party apparatus on either side, I mean, state parties have become an anachronism at this point, and that's because, as Chris said, there are so many other places to park your money now. I mean, what the state party and its subunits at the county and city and town level were really was, a filtration system, an ecosystem for the collection of resources that could then trickle down to all of the subunits. If you've got, in a post-Citizens United decision world, if you've got super PACs and all these other places that you can park your money, or to the example of the Trump presidential campaign, other ways that you can marshal your resources, not on the traditional campaign, tchotchkes of yard signs and direct mail and all of those things. I mean, it still serves a purpose, but its purpose as sort of the heavyweight that it once was, RPV or DPVA, just doesn't seem to be the same.
Look at all the candidates we've mentioned for Senate on the Republican side. Tom Davis, self-fund. Pete Snyder, self-fund. Carly Fiorina, self-fund. Jimmy Massey, self-fund. I mean, that's a political reality. Rob Bell can't self-fund. Ken Cuccinelli can't self-fund. That is a hardcore reality. When you step in the box and you go, should I run for this office or not? And you look at the map, you look at the reality, you go, it's just not there.
What benefit does RPV bring to anyone other than a mail permit?
Zero.
Voter
Aaron?
list?
What?
Voter list.
Voter list. That's it. I mean, and there's nothing
get
wrong
that
with
from
that.
the
It's just,
RNC, though.
if you accept that reality, that premise, that predicate, going into an election, you can win an election. You don't need them to win the election. You need them to run the
But wait a
party.
minute, doesn't the Democratic Party of Virginia, I mean, McAuliffe's raised all this money for them. They have an organization, right? They got Brian Zuzanick is there. He's their political
But
director.
they also
got
have
all these people in
but
the
they
field.
also have the deference to who's leading the team. McAuliffe leads the party. That's it.
So you're saying
He
the
makes the call.
advantage is they have a party leader.
But
that
they
can raise
also,
money for them.
also get in line. They will also say, look, because we are, if you look at the polling, liberals are outnumbered. And they said if we were going to win back in 2004, they said do not mourn, organize. And they got organized.
Do not more and organize. I like that.
I'd say RPV is kind of lacking a functional identity at the moment. Really, in terms of campaigns, it's kind of an afterthought because of Citizens United and things like that. But I think one of the other problems is, and it doesn't matter where you fall on this issue, it's the central fight or attention paid to RPV is whether or not we're going to have a primary or convention in X race, and that's that's where people pay attention to the state central committee. They're not, that's why people run for state central committee, is to say I'm a convention person, I'm a primary person. I haven't heard anybody say they're a canvas person yet, and that's the problem. A lot of people run for those offices in the party and get involved in the party because they have one preference or another on that. They don't do it to help lead people for Republican victory.
So there's single issue.
Their process issue, because it's a nomination process is an
It's a
ideology.
process, right?
And that's become the fight in the party. It's not over policy issues.
Yeah, it's over.
It's who we're going to try to control the
That's
outcome
a good point.
Republicans write the policy in the Commonwealth. We have the House of Delegates by a substantial margin. Bill Howell, Matt Moran built up a war chest of great candidates. Tommy Norman sitting on a treasure
Yeah,
trove.
but they never deal
and
with
neither
the
one of them
Republican
have
Party
anything
of
to do with
Virginia.
RPV.
They don't. But
when
like
Randy
Bill
Forbes
Howell-
was chairman, they had an office in RPV. The House caucus did, the Senate caucus did, and they all worked together.
because they had to. Because they
But
had to.
But now they didn't do that. I mean, Bill Howell doesn't even talk to Whitbeck. He doesn't
Right.
send them any money. Either does
Because
Tommy,
Whitbeck
right?
uses his mailers to go after Bill Howell's members.
That was not smart.
Not smart, right?
No.
That's
Well, the other problem is you've got leadership in the party, and everybody knows where I stand on current leadership, but that's more
Where do you
called-
stand on current leadership? I don't have any.
You have no
He's
idea.
to them as you are to Mets fans.
Yeah, there you go. But no, I mean the bottom line is though they could improve
I
themselves.
don't just hate the Mets. I hate every team except mine.
Whitbeck and Finley have an opportunity right now that Trump has won. They could reach out to people that they don't like, and that is my biggest criticism to them is that they don't do that. They need to, because they are in the building, and RPV, like I said, is lacking identity, and they could use to get past. And now we've got enthusiasm. Channel it, grow the party, get past these process battles,
But
and
they have a brand problem.
Yeah.
And they can turn that around because the brand was so suffocated by the Trump campaign for the last 18 months. Now they have a chance to pivot off of that and recreate themselves in the eyes of the primary voter and the donor.
All right, we've got a minute. We got to get to the Republican Senate race and go around the table. So, this is early, so we're not going to hold you to it. But right now, tell me who you think the potential leading candidates are. And you've each got about 15 seconds. Let's start here with Aaron Gobranson.
if he wants Jim Gilmore, he's got the record, the name ID, and the work ethic to get it done, and the trust.
All right. Julian Walker.
Based on coming from a vote-rich area, I would say Tom Davis or Pete Snyder.
In
right.
a primary,
Chris Saxon.
in a primary, I would give it if they choose to run against each other. I think Davis and Snyder would have a tough time winning it out. I'd still give it to Tom Davis if Rob Whitman doesn't get in.
If Rob Whitman doesn't get in, and that's a potential.
My delegate-
Let's go to Andrew Vehorn.
My delegate, the businessman Jimmy Massey.
You think Massey's got a shot?
I think he's the dark horse. He's the underdog.
I think he's got a shot too. I think if Pete Snyder gets in the race, he's going to be the nominee.
Snyder will be tough if
If he doesn't
gets
get in the race, good luck. Good luck beating Tom Davis.
Well, I think if Snyder gets in, Davis gets out.
I don't think Davis will get out for Pete Snyder. There's not a lot.
If Davis runs, they'll make it a convention.
Well, he is going to run.
And the convention favors Jimmy Massey and Jim Gilmore.
Yeah.
It certainly doesn't favor Tom Davis. Right?
It favors the organized.
It favors the organizer. All right.
That's
Rob
right.
Bell for Senate.
That's right.
That's right. If there's a convention, Rob Bell gets in, he wins. Right? That's it. All right. We're out of time.